Something odd happens when we add a new user and then try to do a match with that user if that user does not have any questions answered. So let's go ahead and emulate this problem so we can actually work with it. So in our site admin, we're going to create a brand new user in here, and I'm going to call that user 006 and 123, 123, save and add user. Cool. So now I have this new user in here called 006. So if I go into my that user's profile, so slash profile slash 006, press enter, I get this empty match percentage. And then I want to add questions for this particular user. So we go into user answers and we go and add user answer 006, question night owl, we'll say night owl, answer importance, mandatory, night owl, mandatory, save and add another, 006, work in teams, in this case we'll say alone, mandatory, alone, also mandatory, save and add another. Cool. So now if we go back and refresh in here, we still get this 0%, right? Even though my user definitely has a match to this. So what happened here and how do we actually fix it? So let's go back in and look at our matches. So when we go to get or create match and we do this match or check update, so if we scroll down, the very first thing will do the match, right? So it's going to check our answers and it'll get the match and then it'll set that answer to whatever it is. So let's actually take a look at what the default answer would be if we actually didn't have anything. But going into our utils, the default answer is 0.00. So now what we want to do is actually change our check update. And we want to say if match decimal is 0, if we have 0 for the match decimal, then we would actually want to update whatever it is. So or self.match decimal is equal to 0.0. So if match decimal is equal to 0, then it's going to do the update. If it's not equal to 0, then it won't do the update, and also if the offset is off too. And that's all that we're seeing here. It's all because of the offset, because it's going off of that time zone and the offset stuff. So it's not going to do that check update unless the match decimal is equal to 0. So the other side of it would be we would want to check either user if they've actually answered questions and then do the actual run again of the matching. But that's getting a little bit too complicated and too ahead of ourselves to really get much further than this. But it is something that we could do either in this check update or in the get match question itself, right? So if user 1 or user 2 does not have very many questions, so if we separated these things out and said the count and stuff like that, we could return 0 right away. So if I refresh in here, now I see that 006 has a 26% match with my user and therefore is now in this list of users as we would want to see. And one of the other one is now gone, which is cool. So that's actually how we would go about fixing this. So what I just mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and just show you just in case it might be an issue for us. So I'm going to first off copy this and paste it twice more. So I'll do question set 1 and question set 2, and now do Q1 distinct. Actually, it doesn't even need to be as distinct. Instead, it just be count and count. So if question set 1 is equal to 0, then we would return 0.0 and 0. And then if we say if question set 2 is equal to 0, then we would also return 0.0 and 0. Because really, if we actually check these counts, so if we check whether or not these question sets are really accurate there, then we would be able to work with this. But this is a little inefficient on how we're doing these things, so I'm going to actually get rid of count here and here, and just put count here, and count here, and then combine those two question sets, just like what we did here, but instead I'm going to go ahead and comment that question set out, and instead now say question set is equal to Q set 1 and Q set 2 dot distinct. This does the exact same thing as this, but now we have this check whether or not they've actually answered questions themselves. So they have questions in their user answer deal. Which is really good. So this is now completing that match. So it's not actually going to do a match. And then now also we will update the match if they have no percentage at all. So every single time it's going to ask if they have no percentage at all, and then it's going to go through the actual search or the utils function. So it's going to go through here, and if it's still 0, it's going to return back a 0. So every time it's 0, it's always going to be checking for an update, because we definitely want to make sure we encourage our users to answer questions. All right, so lastly, let's actually try it one more time. So I'm going to create a new user in here, and in this time I'll say Ned Stark, and I'll do 1, 2, 3. Doesn't really matter what the password is. Question, Night Owl, and then mandatory. Oh wait, actually we don't want to add these questions in yet, so we will leave that out. And I will go back into here. So we've already created that user. Since I did this, it actually creates a brand new user when we hit save. So now we can actually go to profiles.Ned Stark, and we have a 0% match, right? So it's not even in there. It's not even creating the match. And then we come in here, and now we can actually add some questions and answers to Ned Stark. And I'm only going to add one. I'm only going to leave one in particular. So I'll hit save, go back in Ned Stark, do a refresh. We have a 100% match. Now, this is another little issue with our algorithm because they didn't actually answer a significant number of questions. But that's okay. We're just going to leave it at this for now. But long term, this would not be a 100% match. But as a user, we would say how many questions we've actually answered. So that's something that we would actually show this. So then the end user would say whether or not this is a good match, or at least make that decision on their own because they only have one question in common. So the algorithm can do it, but also the end users, we can assume that these end users would see that and realize, hey, this is probably not that great of a match. But again, we might want to refactor our algorithm a little bit to adjust for something like this. But for now, I'm not going to worry about it. The main part of this was that little glitch on how the matches actually were ran and updated. All right, so if you have any questions on this, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.